Okay, video intro. Let's try out a quick talking head. I think and probably a beetle holes. Or you can let the voiceover guy handle it. I have this slab that my wife and I used as a coffee table years ago. I made it when I was 2 or 3 months into woodworking, and it has a ton of flaws. Most obvious is the intense yellowing. I probably used some expired poly on the show surface. All of the imperfections that I filled with black epoxy stained very badly. I amended one piece to another to make it wider, and I did that with alternating pocket holes, which made it tighter at the bottom but pulled apart at the top. The bottom is uneven, and there's a decaying section around this knot that I should have removed before filling with epoxy. So it's pretty screwed up, but we can do something with it. I think it's less exciting when you use wood from an old piece of furniture, but completely reshape it, in that you have to verbally tell someone that the material is from X. Instead, if you can keep some of the features of the original, that's more romantic in my eyes. For this piece, I obviously want to keep that heavily cambered live edge, the big screaming knot, and the general thickness, so it still sings its old tune. So after squaring this thing up a bit and convincing the miter saw to give it back to me, and finish his job, I'll prepare to run it through the planer. I'll pause while you take bets on how this giant split knot will fare in the planer. It's not a worthwhile project unless something blows sawdust all over my freshly cleaned shop. I did chance upon some interesting wormhole structures in planing. I guess they have a main corridor with apartments on either side. Who knew? If you guessed somehow it would come out okay, you're right. Now for where I want this to go, I need it a little longer, so I'll add a piece to the end. Who saw it? Who said, "Hey doofus, that's ingrain to ingrain"? I didn't even think about it until I had it in clamps for an hour. But it's like trying to glue these 2x4s together like this. So to make up for that lapse, I'll mark out the shape of this cherry offcut on the non-show side. Route out close to the line, progressively getting deeper in a few passes, and clean it up with a chisel. Then glue it into place. Now I'll have some long grain to long grain connection between the two. I needed to blend the live edge from that joint, so I'll use the turbo plane by Arbortech to do that. This tool is so fun, and power carving in general if you haven't tried it yet. Then I'll sand it smooth over those gouge marks. I'll go through quite a bit of sanding on this to make sure I'm eliminating as much of that yellowing as possible. I'm going to try Osmo as the finish here, as hard wax oils have been everybody's jam right now. It's pretty expensive for such a small can, but you do in fact use a tiny amount to get the job done. You kind of buff it in with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then make sure you remove any excess. Pine is always going to have a yellow hue, but this is definitely less so than before. I'll use a kit from Woodcraft to mount this to the wall. You drive 2 screws through the mounting bracket into the stud, and there's a set screw type of thing that you have to put in first. Once those are in, you simply twist on the steel bars onto those set screws. I'll find center on the edge of the shelf itself. This thing comes in handy when it does. It's one of those impulse buys that they have at the counter of woodworking stores. Great stocking stuffer. Just saying, because the season is fast approaching. Speaking of the season, I think Santa is bringing me a new vise to fit to my assembly table. Keep an eye out for that video. Because I just awkwardly clamp this to the edge of my table to drill out the corresponding holes for those steel bars. Bit of blue tape lets me know when I've reached full depth. I'll need to clear some room for that bracket to ensure that the shelf mounts flush to the wall. Now I'm certainly no hand tool expert, but especially with soft wood, where the chisel can mash more than cut, It's my experience that severing across or perpendicular to the grain direction first before going with the grain is your safest bet at avoiding that. Just need to be extra careful not to blow out the show face, as this work is close to the edge. This does not need to be pretty at all, simply making sure that there is open space for that bracket to occupy. With a bit of luck and some good math, it should slide right on there. Now, just have to wait for my wife to magnoliafy it for some B-roll to end the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.